We begin with major news from the United States. President Donald Trump has confirmed that the US has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
Now, the move could heighten tensions with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who accuses Trump of trying to overthrow him. The US has been building up its military presence in the Caribbean, amassing troops and naval vessels, including the biggest and most advanced warship in the world. The US says the seized tanker was being used to carry sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran. And we're joined now by John Feeley, former US ambassador to Panama and marine helicopter pilot in Washington, D.C. Great to talk to you at this very moment. Donald Trump says the US has seized a tanker off the coast of Venezuela. What do we know so far about the vessel and its cargo?
So far, Anthony, we know very little. Let me say I'm very pleased to hear that the president said we seized a tanker with the United States Coast Guard, as opposed to simply putting up a picture of a flaming tanker. The one thing I think we don't know the name. There are several reports that are out there, but we haven't had it independently confirmed. We're also not sure exactly where this occurred. But the likelihood, Anthony, is that this was a tanker that is on a list of sanctioned ships that the United States does maintain, and we'll find out where the destination was for it. But again, I think the important thing here is that this appears not to have been done by the Navy, but by the United States Coast Guard, and is enforcing a U.S. sanction. That puts it most likely into a legal action, unlike what we've seen with the attacking of the small craft that are alleged to be carrying narcotics.
John, Maduro has long accused the US of pursuing regime change. How do you now interpret the US's actions here? What do you read into it?
Anthony, for a long time, I have felt that the counter-narcotics pretext that the Trump administration has used has been pretty paper thin. The flotilla that's out there right now is not designed to interdict narcotics coming out of Venezuela. And we know that Venezuela only plays a small part in the illegal maritime narcotics trade. Most of the cocaine that comes out of South America comes up through the Eastern Pacific. So that pretext has always been pretty thin. I think it's pretty fair to say that Maduro's probably right. Donald Trump, and certainly his Secretary of State and his Secretary of Defense and some other people, would like to see Nicolas Maduro removed from Venezuela. And let me say, just as an American citizen and a former diplomat, that would not be the worst thing in the world. None of us who are critical of the Trump tactics are Maduro fans, but there's a way to go to.
Why would you say that, John? Why would, you say that, and why would Trump want regime change in Venezuela? What would he win? What would the US win by doing this?
Oh, well, look, Nicolas Maduro and his regime, number one, are illegitimate. They lost an election. They serially abused the human rights of their people inside Venezuela. And they've taken Venezuela over the last 20 years, starting with Chavez and now Maduro at the helm of the government, from what was one of the most prosperous countries in the region to one of the poorest, and a net instability exporter, both in terms of the outward migration and the clear complicity with narcotics trafficking. So there's no question they are a malignant government. The issue that I have, that many others have, is if there is to be a militarily enforced regime change, that decision belongs to the Congress of the United States and not to a small group of presidential advisors.
I guess we look now to see who else is going to have a say on the matter. Maduro has been historically counted Russia and China among his allies, financially speaking. What chance is there that his two largest creditors might raise their voices in this scenario now?
Oh, I think, as we say here in the United States, slim to none and slim just left town. Look, Anthony, you're not going to count on Russia or China to stick their nose very deeply into this. You may get a few diplomatic protestations about hegemony or, undue influence in a region, but there's no way that Vladimir Putin, who's got a lot bigger fish to fry closer to home in Ukraine, or Xi Jinping are really going to come to the aid of Nicolas Maduro, a serial debtor, and somebody I don't think either of them take very seriously.
John, you've been great. One more before we go, though. Let's talk about the Nobel Prize, if we could, the ceremony in Oslo. How significant was the speech delivered by Machado's daughter in her mother's name? And has this award had any impact, do you think, on Maduro's rule at all?
I don't think it's had any concrete impact on Maduro's rule. What I think it did do today, though, was legitimately inspire the Democrats of Venezuela, the people who have suffered deeply at the hands of the Maduro regime, saw a young woman, the daughter of Maria Corina Machado, give a truly inspiring speech. I think it was something that was both deserved, and I hope that Maria Corina Machado is able to use this as a way to continue to militate for international support for a nonviolent overthrow of the government and a transition back to a democratic regime.
It's been a great pleasure to get your thoughts at this very moment. John Feeley, former US ambassador to Panama, thank you so much for joining us.
Real pleasure, Anthony.
Now, as we heard, the Venezuelan opposition activist, Maria Corina Machado, is expected to make her first public appearance in almost a year in Norway on Thursday. Machado has been in hiding and did not make it out in time to accept her Nobel Peace Prize in person in Oslo.
When the ceremony got underway, it was the daughter of Maria Corina Machado who arrived to accept the award on her behalf, ending weeks of speculation as to whether the Nobel laureate could attend in person. As the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, Jorgen Vatne Frudnes, invited Ana Corina Souza Machado to receive the prize, he said her mother was an extraordinary example of civilian courage, working for democratic rights and a peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. Venezuela's opposition is widely regarded as having won the 2024 presidential election. The Nobel Committee had a stark warning for Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro.
Your power is not permanent. Your violence will not prevail over people who rise and resist. Mr. Maduro, accept the election result and step down.
Maria Machado was barred from running in Venezuela's presidential election, despite winning the opposition's primary by a landslide. Statistics later published by the opposition show the lesser-known candidate who stood in her place won the election. But instead, incumbent Nicolas Maduro was declared the winner. Machado has allied herself with President Donald Trump for opposing Maduro. She has voiced support for the Trump administration's attacks on alleged drug boats off Venezuela's coast, which many have criticized as illegal. In a moving speech delivered by her daughter, she accused Maduro's government of terrorizing Venezuelans.
These are crimes against humanity, documented by the United Nations. State terrorism deployed to bury the will of the people. Some of the more than 220 children detained after the elections were electrocuted, beaten, and suffocated.
Machado dedicated her prize to Venezuelans.
To them belongs the future. Gracias.
She said it gave fresh impetus to finish the fight and pledged Venezuela would be free.